The night my father walked into my restaurant and demanded ownership of it, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the sheer audacity of it knocked the air out of my lungs. 4 years. 4 whole years of silence, and the first thing out of his mouth was a business demand. You're going to sign 15% of this place over to your brother tonight. My father said it calmly, like he was asking someone to pass the ketchup at a backyard BBQ. Like it was normal. Like he hadn't erased me from his life. I stood frozen beside table 12 of River and Oak, my restaurant in downtown Nashville, watching the 3 people who had once been my entire world sit comfortably under the soft amber lighting. My dad, Frank Dalton, swirling a glass of Cabernet he hadn't paid for. My mom, Carol, scrolling through Instagram like she was waiting for a dentist appointment. And my older brother Logan, leaning back in his chair like he owned the damn building. The crazy thing, for half a second, I almost believed this was normal. 20 minutes earlier my floor manager, Alyssa, had rushed into the kitchen looking like she'd seen a ghost. "Hey, Harper," she said cautiously. I was plating roasted duck breast, focused, calm, exactly the way I'd trained myself to be during dinner rush. "What's up?" "There's a family at table 12. I barely looked up. "Okay. They said you'd understand why they didn't need a reservation." That made me pause. A weird chill crept up my spine. "What family?" Alyssa swallowed. "They said their last name is Dalton." The knife slipped in my hand. Not enough to cut me, just enough to make my heart slam into my ribs. I hadn't heard that name spoken out loud in 4 years. 4 years since I'd packed everything I owned into my 2009 Honda Civic and driven from Louisville, Kentucky to Nashville with $4,800 in my bank account and a credit score that looked like a car crash. 4 years since the phone calls stopped. 4 years since my family decided I didn't exist. And now they were sitting in my restaurant. Without warning. Without apology. Without a single ounce of shame. I wiped my hands on a towel and took off my apron. The kitchen hummed around me. Flames crackling, pans sizzling, the smell of garlic butter and rosemary filling the air. My place. My dream. Everything I built from nothing, and somehow they had found it. Of course they had. River and Oak had been featured in Southern Living, Eater, and the Nashville Scene last year. It was hard to miss. I pushed through the swinging kitchen doors into the dining room. Soft jazz floated through the speakers, couples leaned close over candlelight. The city skyline glowed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. And there they were. My family. Like a glitch in reality, my dad spotted me first. His face lit up with the same confident smile he'd worn my entire childhood. "Well, look at that," he said loudly. "There she is!" I didn't move closer. Didn't sit. Didn't smile. "Harper," my mom added, like we'd just seen each other last Thanksgiving. My brother lifted his glass. "Nice place." 3 words. That was the extent of his emotional range. I stayed standing. "You need to leave." My father chuckled. "Still dramatic." "I have a full house coming in 20 minutes. I said flatly. "You can't just show up like this." My mom sighed like I was the problem. "Harper, we drove 3 hours. Then you should probably start driving back." Logan snorted into his wine. Dad leaned forward. "Sit down." "No." His smile faded slightly. "I'm not asking." I didn't sit. But I did step closer. Close enough to smell his cologne. Same one he wore my entire childhood. The familiarity hit me harder than I expected. "You've got nerve coming here?" I said quietly. My mom finally put down her phone. "What came because your brother needs help." Of course he did. Logan shifted in his chair, avoiding my eyes. Dad reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. He slid it across the table toward me. 15% equity stake, he said. Already drafted by a lawyer. I stared at the paper like it might explode. "You want me to sign my restaurant over to Logan?" "Temporary," he said smoothly. "Silent partnership." "For what reason?" Logan cleared his throat. "A business deal went sideways." That was the politest way anyone had ever described Logan's financial disasters. My dad continued. "He got mixed up with some developers in Dallas. Turned out to be fraud. Investors want their money back." "How much?" Dad shrugged. "Couple $100,000. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound startled even me. You drove 3 hours to ask me for 200 grand. We're asking for 15%. Off the restaurant I built. My mom gave me a sad little smile. You're doing well, Harper. You can afford to help. There it was. The old math. Their version of family economics. Logan could destroy everything he touched, and I was responsible for fixing it. Just like always. I thought about the last time I asked them for help. I was 19. When I discovered a 30,000 loan in my name, a loan I never took out. A loan used to fund Logan's failed car detailing startup. My credit destroyed, my savings gone. My dad's response. Family helps family. Now he was sitting in my restaurant asking for more. Like nothing had happened. Like 4 years of silence didn't exist. You owe this family, my father said quietly. I looked him dead in the eyes. No, I said. I really don't. His jaw tightened. You think building a trendy restaurant makes you better than us? I think building it without you proves something. Silence stretched across the table, then my father leaned forward. And that's when the threat came. If you don't sign, he said calmly, I'll start making calls. What calls? Your landlord. My stomach dropped. He smiled. Marcus Bennett still attends Grace Chapel, doesn't he? Marcus. My commercial leaseholder. Dad knew him. Small town church connections. You wouldn't, I said. Oh, sweetheart, he said softly, I absolutely would. For a moment the room felt too small, too loud, too full of memories I didn't want. Then I did something that surprised even me. I smiled. Okay, I said. Dad blinked. Okay. I'll hear you out. My mom relaxed immediately. Logan leaned back again satisfied. Thought so, my dad muttered. I glanced at the clock on the wall. 8:02 p.m. Come back at 10, I said. After service. And we'll talk about the deal. Dad raised his glass in victory. Now that's my girl. I walked back into the kitchen. Alyssa followed me. Are you okay? She whispered. I grabbed my phone. I'm better than okay. I typed one message. They're here. Table 12. I need you. 3 dots appeared instantly. Then a reply. On my way. Do not sign anything. I slid my phone into my pocket. Because the truth was, my family thought they had just walked into my restaurant to take something from me. But they didn't realize something important. For 4 years, I had been preparing for the day they came back. And tonight, they had just walked straight into my trap. The moment she walked through my restaurant doors, I knew my family was about to lose. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in the slow, quiet way people lose when they underestimate the wrong woman. It was 8:47 p.m. and the dinner rush had finally started thinning out. River and Oak had that warm late night energy I loved. Half the tables lingering over dessert, a few couples ordering second bottles of wine, the bar crowd settling in for bourbon and stories. Soft jazz floated through the speakers. The smell of smoked brisket and thyme butter still hung in the air, and at table 12, my family waited, patient, confident, completely convinced they were about to win. I watched them from the bar. My father looked relaxed now, swirling wine like he'd already secured his victory. My mom was back on her phone. Logan had moved on to whiskey. They looked comfortable. Like they belonged there. Like this place was already partially theirs. The arrogance of it made my jaw tighten. But I kept my face calm. Because acting emotional would ruin everything. Then the door opened, and Diane Walker walked in. She was 62, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and dressed like someone who had spent 30 years destroying people in courtrooms. Which she had. Diane was one of the most respected business attorneys in Nashville. She was also something else. The woman who had taught me how to survive. I met her when I was 22, working as a line cook at a diner that stayed open until 3 a.m. Diane used to sit at the counter every Thursday night with a black coffee and a stack of legal files. One night she asked why I looked like I wanted to punch a wall. I told her about the loan. About my credit being destroyed. About my family pretending it was normal. She didn't comfort me. She just said something I never forgot. You don't beat people like that by screaming. You beat them with paperwork. From that night on, she became my mentor. And the closest thing to family I had left. Diane spotted me immediately. Her expression didn't change. but her eyes flicked briefly toward table 12. She had already seen them. She walked over casually. Evening, Harper. I hugged her quickly. Office. Immediately. My office sat just behind the kitchen. Small, plain. Smelled like espresso and printer ink. Diane sat down and crossed her legs. Tell me everything, so I did. Every word. The demand. The document. The threat about Marcus. The Dallas investors chasing Logan. The $200,000 debt. When I finished, Diane leaned back slowly. Interesting. That's one word for it. Do they know about the loan from when you were 19? No. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Not even a hint. Nope. She nodded slowly. Good. I pulled a folder from my desk drawer. I had kept it for years. Inside were copies of everything: credit reports, bank statements, loan paperwork, every ugly piece of proof showing my father had taken $30,000 in my name without my consent. Diane flipped through the documents quietly. After a minute she smiled. Not a happy smile. A dangerous one. Well, she said softly, this is delicious. You think I should call the police? I asked. Technically you could, she said. Fraud. Extortion. Trespassing. Then why do I feel like you're about to suggest something worse? Diane tapped the folder. Because calling the police ends the story. And I think you deserve a better ending. She opened her laptop. Her fingers started flying across the keyboard. What are you doing? Looking at Logan's situation. How? Public records are a beautiful thing. The room filled with the quiet tapping of keys. After a minute she murmured, Yep, there it is. What? Your brother is in deeper trouble than you thought. How deep? About $200,000 deep. Yeah, Dad mentioned that. Diane turned the screen toward me. This is the investment group he owes. 3 men. Real estate developers out of Dallas. Aggressive reputation, lots of lawsuits. Logan defaulted last week, she said. They're trying to recover whatever they can. So they want my restaurant as collateral. Exactly? She leaned back. But here's the fun part. I watched her carefully. Diane loved strategy the way chess players loved checkmates. What if, she said slowly, Logan's debt didn't belong to those investors anymore? What do you mean? I mean, she turned the laptop back toward herself. What if someone else bought the debt? My brain caught up a second later. You mean me? She smiled again. That's exactly what I mean. Is that even possible? I asked. Oh yes. Would they sell it? They absolutely would, she said. Defaulted debt is messy. If someone offers cash, even discounted, they'll take it. How discounted? Probably 60 cents on the dollar. I did the math. 120,000. Roughly. That's still a lot of money. Diane looked at me over her glasses. How much is Logan asking you for tonight? 15% of my restaurant. And what's that worth? I hesitated. About 800,000. Exactly. My pulse started to race. You're saying I buy Logan's debt? Yes? And then? Diane said calmly, your brother owes you. I stared at her. You're serious? Oh Harper, she said. I'm always serious. The plan started forming fast after that. Diane drafted documents. Real ones. Legal ones. A structured loan agreement. Logan would believe he was receiving financial help, but the contract would do something else entirely. It would secure his personal assets against the debt. And does Logan own anything? I asked. Diane checked again. Seriously? Mortgage mostly paid off. My heart skipped. Equity. About $300. Now it was my turn to smile. Okay, I said. So how do we get them to sign? Diane closed the laptop. That part's easy. How? People sign anything, she said, when they think they're winning. She printed the documents. 11 pages. Clean. Professional. Legal. Step 1. She said, handing them to me. You offer help. They'll expect that. Exactly. Step 2. You record the conversation. Is that legal? In Tennessee, 1. Party consent. Meaning if I recorded it, it was perfectly legal. And step 3. Diane tapped the folder containing the old loan documents. You get your father to admit what he did 9 years ago. My stomach tightened. You think he'll say it out loud? Will if you frame it correctly. She looked straight at me. Harper, this is the moment. What moment? The moment you stop being the person who absorbs damage. I swallowed. The person who controls the outcome. I glanced at the clock. 9:56 p.m. almost time. You ready? She asked. No, I admitted. That's normal. I picked up the folder. Let's finish this. When I walked back into the dining room, table 12 was exactly where I left them, half-empty wine bottle, dessert plates, smug expressions. My father looked up. Well, I sat down slowly. I've been thinking, I said. My mom leaned forward. And I looked at my dad. Then the folder. I'll help. Dad grinned immediately. Knew you would. But, I said calmly, I have conditions. The smiles faded slightly. What conditions? Logan asked. I set my phone on the table and pressed record. First, I said, we need to document everything. My father frowned. Why? For my accountant, I replied smoothly. It protects the business. He considered that, then shrugged. Fine. Perfect. Because what they didn't realize was that this conversation wasn't just documentation. It was evidence. And before the night was over, my father was going to confess to something that would change everything. The moment my father saw my phone recording on the table, he hesitated. Just for a second. But I caught it. And that tiny flicker of doubt told me something important. Even bullies know when they might be stepping into something dangerous. Why are you recording this again? He asked slowly. His voice had lost a little of its earlier confidence. Not much. Just enough. I kept my tone casual, like this was boring paperwork. For my accountant? I said, shrugging. Any business transaction over 10 grand needs documentation. That wasn't exactly true, but it wasn't a lie either. It was just close enough to sound legitimate. My father studied the phone for another moment. Then he leaned back. Fine. He gestured toward Logan. Let's get this done. My mom folded her hands on the table like she was about to watch a school play. Logan looked relieved, like the nightmare of the night was almost over. And honestly, for them, it probably felt that way. Because from their perspective, everything was going perfectly. Their stubborn daughter had finally caved. I slid the folder across the table. Before we sign anything, I said, I just need a verbal confirmation for the record. My father sighed impatiently. Harper. It'll take 30 seconds. He rubbed his forehead. Fine. What do you want? I kept my voice calm. State your name. He looked annoyed. Frank Dalton. Relationship to the parties involved. I'm your father. I nodded like this was the most routine thing in the world. And the purpose of tonight's agreement. He cleared his throat. To provide financial support to Logan Dalton. For what reason? His business losses. I tilted my head slightly, and the amount of debt involved. Approximately $200,000. Logan shifted uncomfortably beside him. My mom looked vaguely embarrassed. But no one stopped the conversation. Which was exactly what I needed. I continued smoothly, and Logan currently has no liquid assets to repay that debt. Logan muttered, not right now. Speak clearly please, I said. He rolled his eyes. I don't have the money. Thank you. I turned back to my father. So tonight's agreement provides financial relief to Logan using my business as collateral. Correct. He said. So far everything sounded completely normal. Which was important. Because the next part needed to feel casual. Like an afterthought. Like something boring enough that he wouldn't think about it. I leaned back in my chair. One more thing, I said. What now? He asked. This is just for bookkeeping. My father sighed dramatically. Go on. I smiled politely. My accountant will review any prior financial history between me and the family. She'll want to confirm that this isn't part of an ongoing pattern of financial transfers. My dad blinked. What? Meaning this loan needs to be clearly separate from previous financial events. He looked irritated. What previous events? And there it was, the opening. I folded my hands calmly. The loan taken in my name when I was 19. Silence dropped over the table. Logan's eyes flicked up, my mom stiffened slightly, and my father's expression hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Of course he didn't. At least not officially. I kept my voice light. "The 30,000 loan attached to my social security number." Logan stared at the table. My mother suddenly found the candle fascinating. And my father's jaw tightened. "That was a misunderstanding," he said. "Great," I replied. "Then let's clarify it." He frowned. "Why?" "So the accountant doesn't flag it as part of this agreement." His eyes shifted toward the phone again. "You want that recorded?" I shrugged. "It actually helps you." "How?" "It proves this current transaction is structured and consensual, unlike the previous one." I held his gaze. Calm, patient, unthreatening. Like a business professional discussing taxes. Not a daughter setting a trap. My father thought about it. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. From his perspective, this probably looked like a minor annoyance. A little accounting formality. Nothing dangerous, and most importantly, he believed he was still in control. Finally he waved a hand. "Fine." He straightened slightly and looked toward the phone. There was a loan taken in Harper's name approximately 9 years ago. My heart started pounding. But my face stayed neutral. "Amount?" I asked. $30,000. "And who took the loan out?" A pause. Then he said it. I did. The words landed on the table like a grenade. My brother's head snapped up. "Dad?" But Frank Dalton kept going. "It was used to help Logan start his detailing business." Logan stared at him. "You never told her that." My father ignored him. "It was family money," he continued stiffly. "And the loan was repaid by Harper." I said calmly. "Yes." He muttered. "Without compensation." He looked irritated now. "This isn't relevant." "It is to my accountant." He scowled. "Fine, it wasn't repaid by us." Perfect. Absolutely perfect. The silence after that statement felt electric. Even Logan looked uncomfortable now. My mom tried to smooth things over. "That was a long time ago," she said softly. "Families make mistakes." I smiled politely. "Exactly." Then I slid the contract toward Logan. "Let's move on." Logan picked up the pen. He flipped through the pages. "Why is this so long?" he asked. "Standard loan agreement." He pointed at a section halfway down page 6. "What's this clause?" "Asset guarantee." "What does that mean?" "It means if the loan defaults." I said calmly. "My business has claim to your assets before other unsecured creditors." His eyes narrowed. "That seems intense." "Not really." I shrugged. "Banks do it all the time." He looked at Dad. Dad waved dismissively. "Sign it." Logan hesitated. Just for a moment. And I could see it. That tiny instinct inside him telling him something wasn't right. But arrogance is louder than instinct. And Logan had always believed one thing about me, that I was the soft one, the responsible one. The one who cleaned up everyone else's messes. So eventually he sighed. "Whatever." And signed. My father signed next, without reading a single page. My mom followed, glancing only at the signature lines. 11 pages, 3 signatures, legally binding, irreversible. The moment the pen left the paper, my phone buzzed. One message, from Diane. "Debt purchased. Transaction complete." I looked up slowly. "Actually," I said, "there's something you should know." My father frowned. "What?" I turned the phone toward them. "This morning?" I said calmly, "I bought Logan's debt." The confusion hit them instantly. "What do you mean?" Logan asked. "I mean I contacted your investors." Dad leaned forward. And I bought the debt for 60 cents on the dollar." The color drained from Logan's face. "You what?" I leaned back in my chair. "It means your investors don't own your debt anymore." Silence. Heavy. Terrifying. And then I finished the sentence. "They sold it." I looked Logan straight in the eyes. "To me." The second the words left my mouth, my brother's face went white. Not pale. White, like every drop of blood in his body had just drained straight into the floor. "You're joking," Logan said. But his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. Didn't even blink. "I'm not joking." My father leaned forward slowly, both palms flat on the table. "What exactly are you saying, Harper?" His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm men use when they're trying very hard not to explode. I slid my phone across the table so they could see the screen. An email confirmation glowed under the candlelight. Debt transfer agreement completed. Logan's eyes scanned it, then widened. $200,000. Technically. I said, 120,000. My mom blinked. What? I bought the debt for 60 cents on the dollar. I explained casually. Your investors want it out. The silence that followed felt like the air had been vacuumed out of the restaurant. Logan leaned back in his chair like someone had punched him. You can't do that. I already did. You don't understand how this works. I tilted my head slightly. Oh, I understand perfectly. I tapped the contract he had just signed. Especially now. My father grabbed the document and flipped through it quickly, page after page of legal language. His jaw tightened more with every paragraph. What the hell is this? A loan agreement. You said this was a partnership stake. It's structured to appear that way, I said, for your creditors. Logan's voice rose. Harper, what did you do? I met his eyes. I became your creditor. The words seemed to echo across the table. Logan stared at me like I had suddenly become a stranger. What? He said slowly. You're saying I owe you $200,000. 120,000. I corrected gently, with 3% interest. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. This is insane. No, I said calmly. This is accounting. My father slammed the papers onto the table. You tricked us. I raised an eyebrow. You signed a contract. That's not what we agreed to. You agreed to a secured loan, I replied. And that's exactly what it is. Logan grabbed the contract and started flipping pages frantically. What's this clause? He demanded. Asset guarantee. His voice shook. What assets? Your house. The table went completely still. My mom whispered, Oh my God. Logan stared at me like he'd just realized the ground under him wasn't solid. You can't touch my house. I folded my hands calmly. If you default, I absolutely can. My father's chair scraped loudly against the floor as he stood up. This is extortion. Several nearby diners glanced over. I kept my voice low. No. I tapped the contract again. This is a legal business transaction. Logan's breathing had gotten faster now. You said this would help me negotiate with investors. I will. How? You don't have investors anymore. I leaned forward slightly. You have me. My father pointed a shaking finger at me. You planned this. I didn't deny it. You threatened my business. You owe your family? The words burst out of him. Desperate. Raw. For a moment the old version of me almost reacted. The girl who spent her childhood trying to earn approval. The girl who believed family meant sacrifice. But that girl had disappeared somewhere between the unpaid loan and the 4 years of silence. I don't owe you anything, I said quietly. Logan slammed his fist on the table. You ruined me. I looked at him. Really looked. For the first time all night. You ruined yourself. My mom's voice trembled. Harper, sweetheart. That word almost made me laugh. Sweetheart. 4 years without a single phone call. And now suddenly I was sweetheart again. You could have just helped him, she said. I would have. They all stared at me. You would? Logan asked. Yes. The word landed softly. If you had called. My father scoffed. Oh, please. I'm serious, I said. If you had picked up the phone and said, Harper, we need help, I probably would have written the check. Logan stared at the table. But you didn't. My voice hardened slightly. You showed up with legal documents demanding ownership of my business. The restaurant around us continued like normal. Waiters moved between tables. Glasses clinked, someone laughed near the bar. But at table 12, the atmosphere had turned toxic, heavy, unavoidable. My father leaned close to me. His voice dropped to a whisper. You think this makes you powerful? No, I said calmly. I think it makes things even. Logan rubbed his face with both hands. What happens now? I slid a payment schedule across the table. You make monthly payments. For how long? About 7 years. His head snapped up. 7 years. 3% interest. I reminded him. That's generous. My mom looked horrified. You're going to keep him in debt for 7 years. I shrugged. He signed the contract. My father's voice turned icy. You're enjoying this? No, I said honestly. I'm finishing it. Logan stared at the contract again, then at me. Do you actually plan to take my house? I shook my head. No. Relief flickered across his face. Then I added, I'm filing a lion. The relief vanished instantly. What does that mean? My mom asked. It means he can't sell or refinance the house without paying me first. My father laughed bitterly. You're destroying your own family. I stood slowly. No, I said. I'm ending the part where I'm the only one paying for it. Just then my phone buzzed again. A message from Diane. Police will arrive in 8 minutes if needed. Good. I turned back to the table. I think it's time for you to leave. My father didn't move. We drove 3 hours. There's a Marriott down the highway. Logan looked like he might throw up. My mom looked like she might cry, and my father looked at me like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize anymore. You've changed? He said quietly. I nodded once. Yeah, I had, and that was the whole point. The moment I told them to leave, my father didn't move. He just stared at me. Long, cold, like he was trying to figure out when exactly I had stopped being the daughter he could control. You think you've won something tonight? He finally said. His voice was quiet now. Dangerously quiet. But for the first time since they walked into my restaurant, I wasn't intimidated. Not even a little. I didn't come here to win, I said. Then what was all this? He snapped, gesturing at the contracts. I took a breath. This was closure. My mom shook her head slowly. Harper, sweetheart, this isn't closure. This is revenge. No, I said calmly. Revenge would have been calling the police when you walked in. That made my father's jaw tighten. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I absolutely would. I replied. Your confession about the loan is sitting on my phone right now. The table went silent again. Logan rubbed his temples. You recorded that whole thing? Yes. You're unbelievable. I tilted my head. You mean prepared? He let out a bitter laugh. You set us up. No, I said quietly. You set yourselves up. My mom leaned forward suddenly. Harper, listen to me. Her voice had that soft tone mothers use when they're trying to fix things. The same voice she used when I was a kid and scraped my knee. Families fight, she said gently. Families make mistakes. My chest tightened slightly. Not because she was right, but because she almost sounded sincere. Almost. But this, she continued, gesturing at the contract. This goes too far. I stared at her. You want to talk about going too far? Her expression faltered. Taking a loan in your daughter's name without telling her. I said quietly. That goes too far. My father scoffed. That was 9 years ago. Exactly. And you're still punishing us for it. I laughed softly. You think this is punishment? Logan looked up. Then what is it? I leaned forward slightly. This is the bill. The words seemed to hit harder than anything else I'd said. My father's face darkened. You're unbelievable. Am I? I asked. Let's review the math. I started counting on my fingers. $30,000 taken in my name. My mom looked down at the table. 3 years of destroyed credit. Logan shifted uncomfortably. 2 years of my life working double shifts to pay it back. My voice stayed calm, steady, controlled. And after all that? I continued. When I called asking for help, I looked directly at my father. You told me it was my responsibility because I had lived under your roof. He didn't respond. Because he knew he'd said it. I remembered that phone call like it had happened yesterday. The kitchen table, my shaking hands, the humiliation of asking for help, and the coldness in his voice. You said something else too, I added quietly. My father frowned. What? You said family helps family. The irony of that statement hung in the air like smoke. Logan looked away. My mom blinked rapidly, but my father just stared at me. So this is your version of helping? No, I said calmly. This is my version of accountability. Logan pushed his chair back slightly. You're acting like we ruined your life. You didn't ruin it, I said. You just made it harder. And now you're ruining mine. I met his eyes. You did that yourself. My father's patience finally snapped. This is ridiculous. His voice rose enough that a few diners glanced over again. You built a trendy restaurant and suddenly you think you're better than your family. That's not what I think. Then what do you think? He demanded. I answered honestly. I think I finally learned how to protect myself. For a moment, no one spoke. The restaurant around us hummed with quiet life. Glasses clinked, music played softly, and the past sat heavy between us. Then Logan spoke again, his voice softer now, almost tired. You really would have helped me? I nodded, yes. Without all this. Yes. He stared at the contract in front of him. Why? The question surprised me, because Logan had never asked why about anything before. Because you're my brother? I said. That's what family is supposed to mean. He swallowed, but not anymore. I shook my head slowly. No, not anymore. My mom's eyes filled with tears. You're tearing this family apart. I felt something twist in my chest. But I didn't let it show. This family tore itself apart a long time ago. My father laughed bitterly. You're rewriting history. No, I said quietly. I'm remembering it. I stood up from the table. The moment felt strangely peaceful. Like closing a chapter that had been dragging on for years. I'm serious about the payment plan. I told Logan. Diane will send you the schedule. He nodded weakly. My mom wiped her eyes, and my father looked furious. This isn't over, he said. The threat was back, familiar, predictable. I met his gaze calmly. It is for me. Right then my phone buzzed again. A message from Diane. Police are outside if needed. Perfect timing. I slipped the phone into my pocket. Then I looked at them one last time. You should go. My father stood slowly. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. He leaned down close to me. So this is the daughter we raised? I shook my head. No. This is the daughter you created. Logan stood next. He looked smaller now. Defeated. My mom gathered her purse silently. And for a moment, I wondered if any of them would say something real. Something honest. Something human. But they didn't, they just walked toward the door. And as they reached the exit, my father turned back one last time. His eyes burned with anger. You'll regret this. I held his gaze across the restaurant. Maybe he expected hesitation, maybe guilt, maybe fear, but what I felt instead was something entirely different. Relief. Good night, Dad, I said. 3 weeks after that night, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. And for some reason, the second I saw it, my stomach twisted. You know that feeling when something in your gut says this isn't over? That's exactly what it felt like. It was a Thursday morning, just after the brunch rush. River and Oak was quieter than usual. Sunlight streamed through the big front windows, bouncing off the polished wood tables. The smell of fresh biscuits and roasted coffee filled the air. Normally, mornings like this made me happy. But that day, something felt off. I stepped outside to answer the call. Hello. There was a pause. Then a familiar voice said quietly, Harper, it's Logan. I leaned against the brick wall of the restaurant. My brother hadn't called me in 4 years. And now he was calling again. What do you want? I asked. His voice sounded different, not cocky, not angry, just tired. I made the first payment. I saw. Deanne had forwarded the confirmation earlier that week. A small transfer. Verse 200. Technically on time. That's not why I called, he said. Then why did you call? Another pause. I need to tell you something. My chest tightened slightly. What? It's about Dad. For a second I almost laughed. What about him? Logan exhaled slowly. He's trying to fight the contract. That didn't surprise me. Good luck with that. No, you don't understand. His voice dropped lower. He hired a lawyer. I frowned. And the lawyer told him something. What? He said if the fraud from the loan 9 years ago gets reported. Logan stopped speaking. Logan, I said slowly. What did the lawyer say? He said Dad could go to prison. The words landed heavier than I expected. For a moment the Nashville traffic noise felt strangely distant. I hadn't really thought about that part. The recording. The confession. The legal implications. I knew it existed. But I had never planned to use it. I'm not reporting him, I said quietly. I know. Then what's the problem? Logan's voice cracked slightly. The problem is Dad thinks you will. That made me close my eyes, because I knew exactly what kind of man my father was. Proud, stubborn, terrified of losing control. And men like that didn't handle fear very well. What is he doing? I asked. Logan hesitated, then said the words that made my stomach drop. He's trying to destroy your restaurant. I straightened immediately. What? He's been calling people. Who? Suppliers. Investors, your landlord. Marcus. The name flashed through my mind instantly. Has Marcus said anything? I asked. No, Logan replied. But Dad's trying. Anger surged through my chest. Not the explosive kind. The cold kind. The kind that makes everything suddenly very clear. He's desperate. Logan said quietly. He thinks if he pressures you enough, you'll forgive the debt. I almost smiled. My father really didn't understand me anymore. He's wrong, I said. I know. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Then Logan said something unexpected. I didn't know about the loan. My eyes opened. What? The one he took in your name, he said. I swear to God, Harper, I didn't know. I studied his voice carefully, listening for arrogance, defensiveness, anything. But all I heard was exhaustion. You're saying Dad never told you? I asked. No. So you thought the money came from him? Yes. A strange feeling settled in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not exactly. But something softer than anger. Logan sighed. He always said you were the strong one. I frowned. What does that mean? He said you didn't need help. A bitter laugh escaped my throat. Convenient. Yeah. Then Logan said something that surprised me even more. I'm not calling to ask you to cancel the debt. Good. I'm calling because I think Dad's going to do something stupid. What kind of stupid? I don't know. But when he gets cornered, he panics. I knew that. I had seen it my entire childhood. When control slipped away from him, he lashed out. So what are you telling me? I asked. Logan's voice went quiet. Be careful. For the first time in the conversation, I heard something in his tone that had never existed before. Concern. Not for himself. For me. You're warning me? I asked. Yeah. Why? Another pause. Then he said softly, because I think we both know Dad's not going to stop. A car drove past on the street. Inside the restaurant someone laughed loudly. Life kept moving, but something important had just shifted. My brother and I were no longer standing on opposite sides of the battlefield. Not exactly allies. But not enemies either. I'll handle it, I said. I know you will. His voice softened slightly. You always do. For a moment I didn't know what to say. Then he added one more thing. Harper. Yeah, I'm sorry. The word felt strange coming from him. Unfamiliar. But real. And for the first time in years I believed him. Make the payments, I said. I will. Then the call ended. I stood outside the restaurant for another minute, thinking, processing, planning, because if my father was trying to sabotage my business, he had just made a very big mistake. Inside my office, Diane looked up when I walked in. You look like someone just declared war, she said. Pretty close. What happened? I set my phone on the desk. Frank Dalton is trying to destroy River and Oak. Diane didn't even blink. She just leaned back in her chair slowly. Then smiled. The same dangerous smile she'd worn 3 weeks earlier. Well, she said calmly. If that's the game he wants to play. Her eyes met mine. We should probably show him how professionals handle war. The first call came from my produce supplier. Then the second came from the wine distributor. By the third call, I realized Logan hadn't been exaggerating. My father had officially started his war. It was a Monday morning, just before lunch service. I was standing in the kitchen checking inventory when Alyssa rushed in holding the restaurant phone. Harper, she whispered, covering the receiver. You need to take this. Who is it? Your wine distributor. That was weird. I took the phone. Hey Mark. Mark sounded uncomfortable. Harper. Quick question. Sir. I just got off the phone with a man named Frank Dalton. My grip tightened on the receiver. What did he want? He said he's your father. Of course he did. And, I asked. He said you're about to lose the restaurant. For a second, the kitchen noise faded into the background. What exactly did he tell you? I asked calmly. Mark cleared his throat. He said your business is under financial investigation. I almost laughed. That's creative. He told us suppliers might not get paid. Ah, now I understood the strategy. If my father could scare suppliers into pulling contracts, River and Oak would collapse within weeks. No food, no wine, no restaurant. Did you believe him? I asked. Mark chuckled awkwardly. Harper, you've paid every invoice early for 3 years. Then why call? Because he sounded convincing. My father had always been good at that, convincing people he was the smartest man in the room. Mark, I said calmly, have I ever missed a payment? Noog. Have I ever delayed an order? No. Then I think we're okay. He laughed. Yeah, we're good. Call ended. Problem solved. Or so my father thought. Because the next call didn't come from a supplier. It came from Marcus Bennett, my landlord, the one Dad thought he could manipulate through church connections. I answered immediately. Hey Marcus. His voice was calm. Harper, your dad called me. Of course he did. What did he say? Marcus chuckled softly. He said your restaurant was about to default on the lease. I leaned against the counter. And what did you tell him? I told him something interesting. What? Marcus paused. I told him I had lunch with Diane Walker last Thursday. That made me smile. Diane moved fast. What did Dad say after that? I asked. Marcus laughed. He hung up. Because if there was one person in Nashville my father couldn't bluff, it was Diane. She knew every contract, every clause, every legal pressure point, and Marcus trusted her completely. My father had just tried to intimidate the wrong people. I hung up the phone and walked into my office. Diane was already there, reading something on her laptop. You look pleased, she said. Dad's making calls. I know. You know. She turned the screen toward me. An email thread filled the page. Restaurant suppliers, landlords, investors. All copied. What is this? I asked. My response. Diane leaned back in her chair. When your father started calling people yesterday, one of them called me. Yesterday. Yes. She smiled slightly, so I decided to get ahead of the situation. What did you do? I sent a letter. She tapped the email. Legal language filled the screen. Sharp. Precise. Devastating. This, she said calmly, is a formal notice of harassment and business interference. My eyebrows lifted. Seriously? Oh yes. Is that legal? Completely. I scanned the message quickly. The letter explained 3 things. 1. Frank Dalton had confessed to financial fraud. 2. He had no legal claim to my business. 3. Any attempt to damage River and Oak would result in immediate legal action. Attached to the email was something even worse. The transcript of his recorded confession. My stomach flipped slightly. You sent that to people? Only the relevant ones. How many? Enough. That meant every supplier my father called now knew the truth, not just that he was wrong, but that he had committed fraud. I looked at Diane. You basically nuked his credibility. She shrugged. He started the war. My phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. I answered anyway. Hello. My father's voice exploded through the speaker. You sent my confession to half the city. His anger was volcanic. I stayed calm. No. Don't lie to me. Diane sent it. There was a pause, then a furious breath. You're destroying this family. No. I said quietly. You're doing that yourself. You think you're clever? He snapped. You think this restaurant makes you powerful. I glanced out the office window. Customers were already lining up for lunch. The place was alive. Thriving. Everything he had tried to sabotage was still standing. I don't need power, I said. I just needed protection. You've embarrassed me, he growled. You embarrassed yourself. Another silence. Heavy. Then he said something I hadn't expected. You're not my daughter anymore. The words hung there. Cold. Final. But instead of pain, all I felt was clarity. Because the truth was, he had stopped being my father a long time ago. That's okay, I said quietly. and I meant it. The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a moment, then set it down on Diane's desk. Well, she said calmly, that escalated. I nodded slowly. Yeah, but it's over now. She closed the laptop. I think so. And for the first time in years, I finally believed that might be true. The last time I saw my father, he was standing in the middle of my restaurant like a stranger. And somehow, that moment felt less painful than everything that had come before. It happened about 2 months after the phone call. Life had settled back into something that almost felt normal. River and Oak was busier than ever. Word had spread around Nashville about the drama, sure, but instead of hurting business, it had oddly done the opposite. People love a comeback story. And apparently, they love a stubborn woman who refuses to be crushed even more. Friday nights were now packed wall to wall. Reservations booked 3 weeks out. The kitchen humming, the bar buzzing, country music drifting through the speakers. Everything I'd built with my own hands was thriving. Without my family, without their approval, without their money, that Friday night was no different. The dining room was glowing under warm lights. Couples laughed over glasses of wine. A group of college kids at the corner table were celebrating someone's birthday. Alyssa was running food like a pro, and I was standing behind the bar pouring bourbon when the front door opened. The air shifted instantly. You know that feeling when a room suddenly gets colder? That's what it felt like. Because walking through the door was my father. For a moment I thought my brain was playing tricks on me. But no, it was definitely him. Frank Dalton. Same stiff posture, same gray suit, same cold expression, but something about him looked smaller. Not physically, emotionally, like a man who had finally realized he wasn't in control anymore. The hostess looked confused. Do you have a reservation, sir? He didn't answer her. His eyes were locked on me, across the room. 4 years of silence. Months of war. And now he was standing in the one place he never thought I'd succeed. Alyssa noticed him too. Her eyes widened. Harper, is that? Yeah, I said quietly. It is. He walked slowly toward the bar. People didn't recognize him. To them he was just another middle-aged guy in a suit. But to me, he was the man who erased me from his life. When he reached the counter, he sat down, not like a customer, like a man who had something heavy to say. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked over. Evening, I said. My voice was calm, professional, almost detached. What can I get you? For a moment he just stared at me. Then he said quietly, you built all this. I glanced around the restaurant. The laughter, the music, the warmth. Yeah, I said. I did. He nodded slowly, then said something I never thought I'd hear. I underestimated you. I leaned against the bar. You didn't underestimate me, I said. You ignored me. That landed harder than I expected. He didn't argue, didn't deflect. Just sat there in silence for a moment. Finally he said, Logan's moving to Colorado. That caught me off guard. What? He got a job offer. I blinked. Good for him, my father sighed. He said he wants a fresh start. I nodded slowly. That makes sense. He looked at me carefully. He said he's going to finish paying you back. I know. He also said he doesn't want anything from the family anymore. For a second I wondered if Logan had told him about our conversation weeks earlier. Maybe he had. Maybe he hadn't. Either way, something had clearly shifted. My father rubbed his hands together. I didn't come here to fight, he said. That's new. He ignored the comment. I came to ask you something. I waited. He swallowed once. Then finally said it. Is there any chance you'd forgive the rest of the debt? There it was. The same question. The same hope. The same mistake, but this time, the answer felt different. Not angry, not bitter, just honest. I shook my head gently. No. He closed his eyes briefly, as if he had expected that. I thought maybe. He started. You thought wrong? I said. But then I added something else. Something he clearly didn't expect. Logan can finish paying it. His eyes opened. But after that we're done. What does that mean? He asked. It means the contract ends. And us. I met his eyes directly. There is no us. For a long moment he just sat there, looking at the restaurant, the life I had built without him. Then he stood up slowly. "I suppose that's fair," he said. He reached into his wallet and placed a $20 bill on the counter. "For the bourbon," he said. I hadn't even poured him one. But I didn't argue. Before he turned to leave, he paused. Then said quietly, "You proved me wrong." I watched him walk toward the door. A man who had spent his entire life believing power came from control. Finally learning it didn't. The door opened. Cold night air rushed in. And then he was gone. Alyssa hurried over. "Are you okay?" I looked around the restaurant again. The life, the noise, the freedom. And for the first time since I was 18, I felt completely at peace. "Yeah," I said softly. "I really am." Later that night, after the last customer left, I locked the front door, turned off the lights, and stood alone in the quiet dining room. 4 years ago my family erased me. They tried to bury my future under their mistakes. But they forgot something important. You can erase a name from a family tree, but you can't erase someone who refuses to disappear. I flipped off the final light and walked out into the Nashville night, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't walking away from my family. I was finally walking toward my own story.